Robert, we can't hear anything you're saying. You might have to restart the whole thing because your audio is not working. But this is Jonathan Galt. We're talking Xiamen Diamond League. Great opening day. If you got up early to watch it, you're rewarded. We got a world record from Mondo Duplantis. Sha'Carri RIchardson goes down in her season opener. Coleman over Fred Kerley in the 100 meters. Gudaf Tsegay gives the world record a scare in the women's 1500, 350.30, number 3 time all time. Beatrice Chepkoech kicks ass in the women's steeple. Marco Arop wins a close one in the men's 800. Fun day. I mean, I'm glad I watched this one. I'm glad you guys got up for it. I'm ready to talk some track.
So you guys did not hear my brilliant opener to this live show, John?
We were deprived of that, Robert. I'm sorry.
Got a $500 mic, but this cord keeps popping out, so I've now switched mics. Yeah. What a race. I mean, what a meet. It did not disappoint. I was like, I'm getting up at 6:30 to watch this. Is it going to be worth it? But it was amazing to me. Mondo begins the season like he ended it. World record scare in the women's 1500. Great sprint action, even although it wasn't fast, but it's very interesting. Where to begin? I mean, what is there to say about Mondo other than the fact that the guy's a baller? Like what's interesting to me though is it shows you that you don't necessarily need like the atmosphere to set the world record. I mean, he's done it before at World Indoors. He's done it at the end of the Diamond League season, the Diamond League final. But here we are at this season opener. I couldn't really tell what the crowd was like because they do a wonderful job of like painting the seats, but it didn't seem like an amazing, eclectic, loud atmosphere. And he just goes out and just destroyed the world record. So, you know, and based on what we saw at this meet last year, where the sprint times were super fast, I kind of thought this morning when I'm driving out to the office, I'm like, is this some super track? Can we see super times? But in reality, it was the opposite of that. We saw like slow sprint times and some pretty fast distance times, considering the conditions were like, you know what, mid-70s degree temperature with like super high humidity.
So it was miserable for distance running. I was impressed that anyone broke 13 minutes in the 5K. Lamecha Girma got the win there. The sprints, it didn't help that they had a headwind. I think it was minus 0.6 for the 100, around there for the women's 200 as well. But Coleman ran 9.83 on this track last year. So I am a little surprised. Even Addy Wiley was like, look, even the headwind doesn't totally explain that. I think you can also say, though, it's April. Like, it's April 20th. I wasn't expecting super crazy times or performances in any event. So I think it was actually kind of cool we got them in the distances. The sprints, I mean, Sha'Carri was over a second off her personal best. Still almost won. I guess we can get to that in a minute. But I'm willing to say, like, okay, the sprint times, they weren't great, but it's also April 20th. I'm not sort of freaking out.
I mean, this track meet exceeded expectations, right? The timing in the U.S., 7 a.m. East Coast, 4 a.m. Any West Coast visitors, holy crap, who got up for this one? You deserve a big thumbs up. But, I mean, world record. A-Rop and stuff was pretty good. But then you had star races. I feel like you had Sha'Carri. She's, at least in the U.S., she moves the needle, gets beat. That's sort of intriguing. Then you have Coleman versus Kerley to cap it off. Just tremendous track meet, I thought. And, wait. And somehow I'm forgetting the 350, 1500 meters, like, in there as well. Like, I mean, the performances were really good. And, I mean, the track is beautiful. I thought it was a good start to the opening season, for sure.
Should we start with the women's 1500? Because we talked about Mondo a little bit, but outside of him, I would say this was the performance of the day with Tsegay. You know, this is a woman Robert was sort of posting on the thread, why are they going out in 60.7? Like, that's a men's time. I'm like, have you seen Gudaf Tsegay race before? This is just what she does. She requests a really aggressive pace. She likes to go out hard. And got to the bell at, I think it was like 2:49 on the clock. And I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, I don't think she's going to break the world record, but she looked strong. She started to gap Burka Hylom early in the last lap. And she was ahead of the pace lights, which I didn't know what the lights were set for. So I guess that's one of the things, like, that just needs to be made clear. If there are pace lights and you're broadcasting a race, you need to say, hey, the lights are set to this pace, just FYI. She ends up running 350.30, number 3 in history. Still a second off of Faith Kipyegon's world record, but kind of reminds me of what Mondo did. What did Gudaf Tsegay end the 2023 season by doing? She set a world record in the 5,000 at the Diamond League final. And now she starts off the 2024 outdoor season with a 350, number 3 all time in the 1500. Nice rebound after her shock defeat at World Indoors to Ellie St. Pierre. So she looked very, very happy with this one afterwards. She was fist pumping. I think she was celebrating almost as much as when she broke the world record in Eugene.
I guess, John, one thing I need to do, figure out in my head is what essentially 350 splits are. Because it wasn't that long ago. I mean, what? Less than a decade ago? Like, Jenny Simpson was world champion in the 1500s. 4 minutes, sub 4 was a pretty good time. And everyone, well, not everyone, but I know 64 second pace is 4 minute flat pace for 1500 meters. But so I guess with what? Take 2.5 seconds off a lap, essentially. So 61 and change is what you need to go 350.
Well, you exactly. I mean, can we point out the fact that Morgan Usini, I coached at Cornell for 10 years. She went to Cornell. She was ranked number 1 in the world by, I believe, Track and Field News the entire year. Was that 2011? Not sure what year it was. That was probably the year she got tripped to Worlds. She probably would have been your world champion.
It was 2011. 2011 was also a very weak year, though, for the 1500. It's not
but
like
I'm saying
runners was slower, but it was a weak year overall.
But John, she never broke 4 flat in her life. Period. Not once. And now you have, just whatever. So I was a little disappointed when I was watching this race live. By the way, if you got up in the U.S. on the West Coast, I guess you were happy because the race was not live on Peacock. They falsely present this as live coverage, but I finally got frustrated because there was a lot of commercials and field events, and I realized they were behind the live feed. So I fired up the VPN, letsrun.com/VPN. If you need a VPN, started watching this on YouTube, and they were 6 minutes behind on Peacock. I understand streaming is going to be a little bit behind. Well, I guess YouTube's streaming too, though. So, but and I watched this race on the international feed, and right when it ended, I said it's not a race if I don't complain about the broadcasting. I was like you, John. I was watching the splits. I saw them ahead of the pace lights. I was like, could this be a world record? And they were just like, oh, she pulls away. They're acting like it was a ho-hum, just dominant victory. Now, and then right when she hit the finish line, I hit pause and then went on a rant on the message board about it. And then Chris Dennis did immediately realize after the race, like, wow, that's the third fastest time. He's got great knowledge of the sport. He normally does a great job. But I was kind of disappointed. Like, isn't Hannah England's job on that point? She's kind of a color role for that race to realize what's happening mid-race, get super excited, because I was getting excited, and I want the announcers to get excited. I didn't watch it on Peacock. I hope that these people realize what's going on. I don't know why Trey Hardy's doing the distance race. Hey, NBC, Peacock, if you need someone to do the distance race and get excited about it, I'm your man. I'll do it. But just it's wild. And in the middle of this race, or maybe right. No, I think it was actually mid-race, John. I saw, 60 flat first lap, but I kind of joked that they not realize this is a women's race, not a men's race. But what was impressing me was like people were with it. It was single file, and there was not a big gap. Now the gap started pretty quickly right after that. But I was thinking to myself, I think by 800, I said any Americans hoping for a medal might as well just give up right now. Now, John rolls his head as I say that, but it's amazing to me that, and it's a credit to Mark Coogan, New Balance, Ellie St. Pierre, that she beat this Gudaf Tsegay woman at World Indoors. But to me, it's like if the cream of the cream all enter the 1500, there aren't going to be any medals to take. Hassan, who did pull out of this race, Kipyegon, who did pull out of this race with an injury, if she's 100%, she's not losing a medal. Tsegay's not losing a medal. And Hassan, if she was actually focused on the track, now I don't think she's going to be focused on the 1500 since she probably wants to win the marathon. I think that she would take the medal. And then you've got, now I guess you could say that the second place Ethiopian here, John, did fade a little bit to 353. Could an American run 353? Maybe they're going to have raced themselves out of shape by then because there's so many Ethiopians. I mean, the depth of the Ethiopians and how they pick the Olympic team is kind of insane. Like, if I was the Ethiopians, I would tell Tsegay, you're in whatever event you want right now, all three. If you want to run all three, go ahead, because she's that good and she needs to be judicious in what events you pick. I mean, Berkey Highlam, 353.22 season opener. Like, how are we going to touch that Team USA?
How are you going to touch it? I mean, you just laid so many qualifiers in your statement that you basically answered your own question. First of all, these women might not run this event. Tsegay might not run the 1500. She didn't last year at Worlds. Faith Kipyegon, when she's at her best, she's untouchable, but she withdrew from this race. If there's an injury going on, I mean, that's something to monitor, obviously. Bad Clams is speculating. I did think about this conspiracy. I'm like, did Kipyegon pull out and she was told that, Gudaf Tsegay might be targeting the world record? I don't think so, because Kipyegon's convincingly beaten her in the past, but it's a fun little conspiracy theory to bandy around. And then Hassan, we don't know if she's going to run the 1500 either. And then you've also got a ton of Ethiopian talent. There's always going to be a couple of them running really well, but are they all going to be on their game when it matters and run a smart race in the Olympic final? I'm not confident about that. I mean, look at this race. Ferengi Hailu, who was untouchable at World Indoors, she was only 5th in 358.1. I bet Ellie St. Pierre could run that. Berkey Highlam was great today. She's only 18. She PRs by more than a second, 353.22. That's really, really good. But Dariba Welteje, who was looking like the heir apparent to Kipyegon at the end of last season, she got silver at Worlds. Then she wins the World Road Running Championships in the mile. She was 4th in 357. These are all good times. I mean, 357 in April, not bad, but also not untouchable. So, yeah, I think we can still send a team to Paris in the 1500, and maybe, Ellie St. Pierre and someone else could dream of a medal if everything breaks their way. But an impressive run, certainly by Tsegay, and definitely by Berkey Highlam on second as well.
You talked me into it. I think the Americans are good at peaking when it matters most. And the Ethiopians, there's so many of them. They may race themselves into oblivion trying to get on the team. They don't have a trials race. They don't even know what they're going to do probably at this point. And to be honest, people are going to get mad at me. I think the Western coaching is better. We're more used to 1500s. We're more used to peaking for the Olympics. So, that's an advantage. Like, you've got a teenager running well in April. Is she necessarily going to hold this, till the beginning of August? One other thing here that
I think it's a fair question, because look at last year. Last year, July 16th, Berkey Highlam runs 354 at the Lamecha Diamond League. That's a month before the World Championships. She only finished 9th in the World Championship final. A 354 woman, even in the year 2023, shouldn't be finishing 9th. And she was, granted, she was 17 years old at the time, so maybe she's got the experience now, but there are going to be questions.
And can we give a shout out here to Georgie Griffith of Australia, 27 years of age. She just finished second at the Australian Championships. The only time she had ever come close to 4 flat was in 2022 when she ran 4 flat 0.16. But in every other year, the fastest she's ever run in any other year is 4:03. And she had run 4:03 at the Australian Championships. And now she runs 3:59 to become, the first non-African finisher here. So she was sixth.
Whoa. She was not – okay, she was the first non-African finisher, but there's another Aussie in this race who had just even more remarkable breakthrough, I would argue. I had never heard of this person before. Sarah Billings. I looked it up. She was 4th in the Aussie Championships in the 1500. She's 26 years old. Her personal best going into this race was 4:06.77. And she just ran 3:59.59 to take 9th. That is a breakthrough.
That must be the woman. I saw. The reason why I was scrolling down is because after this race ended and after I went on my rant about the announcing, I rewound it on YouTube. And I was like, wait, I want to see how American Addy Wiley did. And by the way, it wasn't good. She did not look good. 11th place, 4:03.45. And so I saw like, the top African people coming. Then I saw like basically a lot of white faces and Australians. And I saw one with just a huge smile. I was trying to figure it out who it was. So maybe the 26-year-old who went
Sarah
from
Billings, definitely. Yeah.
God, someone get her on the podcast now. How do you run a 7-second mile P personal best? Like, has a 26-year-old has a 26-year-old man ever done that? Like gone from, the equivalent of like what do you think 4 flats the equivalent of 359 is the equivalent of for men? It's like probably like 350 in the mile. I mean, it's kind of hard to say, like 352 or something. Oh God, super impressive.
Also, Addy Wiley, Robert, you said it was, not a good run for her. I'd push back on that a little bit. It looks bad because she finished 13 seconds behind the leader. But if she ran 4:03 at like the Drake relays in April, I think we'll be saying that's fine. She's just up against some Australians who are in shape because they're peaking for their national championships and a bunch of Ethiopians who are just better than her right now. But let me remind you, last year she ran 4:03 in Nashville at the Music City Track Carnival on June 3rd. That was a personal best for her at the time. Everyone was very pleased with that result. Now she's running basically the same time, a little earlier. I think she just got beat because it looks bad because she got beat by a bunch of people who are in shape right now. But 4:03 in April for Addy Wiley, all things considered, I don't think that's a terrible result.
I probably shouldn't say it. She doesn't look fit to me. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, let's move on. Men's 800 meters.
Let me rephrase that. People say that I shouldn't say it, but I feel like I should say it. But that's what I'm going to say.
Well, you've already said it, and we're live, so can't take it back at this point. Men's 800. This one was interesting because for a while it looked like Marco Irop, the world champion from Canada, was going to do what I expected him to do. He went to the front. It went out fairly aggressively. It was like 50 point, so not crazy fast, but quick through 400 meters. And I'm like, all right, is he just going to pull away from everyone? And he kind of got a gap, but then Wycliffe Kimnyamal and Shapiso Masalelo of Botswana were coming back on him on the final turn. And the home straight was a great duel between Arop and Kinyamal. They were sort of back and forth, battling it out, shoulder to shoulder. I was impressed that Marco Arop was able to hold on and battle when he was challenged. That was the mark of a champion. And they both ran very fast. 1:43.61 for Arop, 1:43.66 for Kinyamal. Very quick for this time of year. Impressive fortitude for Arop to battle back when challenged, and good run for both of these guys. But the interesting thing here is we thought there might be a big gap between Arop and Emmanuel Wanyonyi, who's running in Nairobi in a matter of minutes. Doesn't look like right now they're way better than everyone else, considering that Arop only barely won this race.
Yeah, but John, they ran 1:43. I mean, like, I guess they probably ran the marks we thought they would run, but do we expect Kinyamal to be that close? And because even like Clayton Murphy essentially was off the screen in the U.S., but 1:45.3, I think that's a pretty good opener for him in April.
That's fine.
If I'm Clayton Murphy, I'm thinking, okay, I can still do this. I want to be there at the trials and in Paris. I was just the times were impressive. I mean, Kinyamal's he's a 1:43.1 guy in the past. The Botswanan dude, he keeps getting better, man. 1:43.88 to Shipihiso Masasalela. Botswana hits above its weight, man. Well, especially in the 800, but we got 100, 200. I mean, per capita, I guess I shouldn't say that because it's not up there like with Jamaica or something, but it's sort of amazing the talent that comes out of that country.
I wasn't totally listening, guys. Did the 800 already happen at Kip Keino today?
I don't think it's happened yet. The Kip Keino meet's going on right now. But
yeah, so anyway, I think there might have been a mistake there. Someone said we thought that Arop and Wanyonyi might be way ahead of everybody else in the world, and it looks like that's not the case because Kinyamal was right there with him. So
that was the point I made. Yes.
Yeah, but I think you said the wrong names for there. by mistake. Anyways, Murphy, I was looking it up. I thought this was pretty good for him, 145. And last year, we need to remember he had a disappointing USA's indoors. He was 8th or 6th or something. And then he went to Botswana and he supposedly ran a 145 mid like this. But the times were off. People weren't sure what the times were, if the times were legit. Then he went to Doha and ran 147.9. So he actually does often kind of run 145 often in April or mid-May. But I agree with Weldon. That's my thought was this is pretty good if he can just improve. But I was looking deeply at his results. Some years he goes down a significant amount, like the trials in 2021 when he won those in a huge negative split. I was like, if he can run that race in the Olympics, he's got a medal. He didn't do it, So I think that there was a lot of question marks surrounding Clayton Murphy for me coming into this race. Can he do a third straight trials? Can he win it again? Can he be a factor? We don't know for sure. But since he didn't run indoors, I had a lot of question marks. This to me is a very positive sign.
All right, the other two distance races were not as close. There was the men's 5,000. Lamecha Girma looked really good over the last lap. I think this guy, kind of the knock on him is he always gets out-kicked by El Bakkali, but El Bakkali is also a really, really good kicker. So in this race, Girma looked like the guy with the kick because he just he got this big gap with 300 to go. He attacked, and it was essentially game over from there. And this event was missing some of the top 5,000 meter guys, but Nicholas Correa, pretty good guy in shape, just got 4th at World Cross. It wasn't an amazing field, but I was impressed with how Girma looked on the last lap, especially since his 5K debut last year in Zurich went poorly. 12:58. I think he was about 55 seconds for his last lap, and in brutal conditions as well, 72 dew point, 77-degree temperature, 87% humidity. Good outdoor opener for Lamecha Girma.
It was good for him. He's never finished a 5K before, but I don't think he should move up to the 5K. This field wasn't that great. He opens up that huge gap, but then he gives it up at the end. He's still figuring out the event. Could he be a really good 5,000 meter runner? Obviously, right? If you have the steeple world record and are really good at flat 3K, it should be in your wheelhouse to be pretty damn good at the 5,000 meters. But yeah, I'm not big.
Is he number 2 in the world in this event? No. He's number 2 in the world. Yeah, he's number 2 in the world in the steeple, and the question is, can he be number 1? I don't think he's the second best 5K guy.
Yeah, and I don't. And also, while it's still in his wheelhouse to be good at the steeple, that's sort of his prime time, I think, to be good at the 5K. So I don't ever see him really ever needing to make this event his primary focus. But I guess you could argue maybe his flat 3K speeds should translate over. Maybe he's not that great of a hurdler. He's going to keep getting beat in the steeple. He's good. He's better at a time trial type race. So, but championship races in the 5K, they're not time trials either. So I think you definitely stick with the steeple.
Yeah. Well, the question is, who does he have a better chance of beating? Sufjan El Bakkali in a steeple or Jakob Ingebrigtsen in a 5K? To me, it's still beating El Bakkali in a steeple, even though he hasn't been able to do it. Yeah, I don't know if there's that much more to say about this race, honestly. No Americans were in there, so I think we can move on to the steeplechase.
Well, I think Stewie McSwain missed the standard by 0.108. So, he was up there basically until 500 meters to go. But that doesn't really mean anything. He's got a couple months to get in shape and try to get on the team in the 5,000 if he wants to run.
Yeah, kind of also interesting, Matthew Ramsden, who was the Australian champion, he was lost in this race in 13:26. So, I don't know, maybe he's still feeling the efforts of that. Women's steeple, Beatrice Chepkoech. This was sort of vintage Beatrice Chepkoech, or as a reminder of what she used to do a few years ago when she was she's still the world record holder, but when she broke the world record, she just got a huge lead and didn't give it up. 8:55, won by 10 seconds. We saw her getting back into form last year. This was, really impressive run. She crushed everyone. Winfred Yavi, who was the world champ last year, was a late withdrawal. Nora Gerudo, who was the world champ the year before and is now eligible to compete again, running for Kazakhstan, she wasn't in here. So, the two people you would think her biggest rivals won in this race, but 8:55 in your opener, winning by 10 seconds, tough conditions, really good run for her.
Yeah, Chepkovic seems fully back now. So, and also I feel like this event, the U.S. had such a good run in it. And I feel like that run's over for a little while. Like, I don't know. Like the bar is continuing to drop. It's, it's not exactly like the women's 1500, but 4 minutes used to be a really good time. In the 15, 9 minutes here. Well, 9 minutes isn't going to cut it anymore. I think for medals.
No, and yeah, you're going to need to be in sub-9 shape, and Courtney Frerichs has been in that shape before, but not for a while. And Emma Coburn's PB is 9:02 and has had injury issues the last couple of years. Both of them are on the wrong side of 30 now, so essentially they're going to have to get back into the shape of their lives to do it, and that's going to be a challenge. I give Frerichs a little bit better chance just because she's a little younger, and if she's also got a new training set up, I wonder if she'll be able to keep healthy. She seems fairly optimistic about it, but it'll be difficult. Because the women at the top of this event right now are running mid to low 850s, and that's a time no Americans ever touched.
And this one, also these like blowout distance races, it's not good TV. I feel like, obviously a Worlds or something like this wouldn't happen, but even the early laps of a 5K, I can see why they go to like commercial on NBC. It's like at the Worlds, there's drama, there's shit you can talk about. This one, I'm like, okay, come back. Let's watch the last couple of laps.
Yeah. Okay, Robert, any thoughts on this, or should we move to the sprints?
Well, I'm just wondering here. I'm looking at the article that Jonathan Galt wrote to see if you guys are talking about Girma, to see if the 5,000 steeple double is doable. So trying to figure out what day the men's 5,000 prelim. The steeple final is on the final day of track action, the 10th. And the first round is on the Wednesday, the 8th. So the double's kind of doable, I guess. Like, how much would it tire you out to run the 5,000 first round at 11 a.m. when you have the morning of the steeplechase final at 9:45 at night?
They're on the same day?
Correct.
He's not going to do it then. I mean, you say it's kind of doable. I mean, yeah, Sifan Hassan, I think most athletes would say, screw that. I'm not running a prelim on the morning of my final. He's not going to do it.
It's kind of funny because we wrote a whole article back when the Olympic schedule came out last year, the year before, about what doubles were doable. We didn't even look steeple 5,000. But let me push back. My job on this podcast is also to just consider alternative viewpoints here. I'm for diverse. The world is obsessed with diversity, but it's really just diversity in faces and colors. I'm into diversity of thoughts. And let me push back this. Let's just say that he assumes he's going to get second in the steeple. I can't win the steeple, but I'm way better than everybody else. So I might as well just run the steeple final a little bit tired, and then I get a second crack at it in the 5,000. The problem with that thought process to me is, if he can't outkick El Bakali in the steeple, why do we think he would outkick Ingebrigtsen in the 5,000?
I made the exact same point. Look, guy, he's not going to run a 5K prelim on the morning of the Olympic steeple final. He's just not. No athlete's going to sign up to do that unless they're crazy, and Sifan Hassan's crazy.
I don't even think that's that crazy, though. I think you've got plenty of time. I don't think that would really tire you out, John. We're talking 12 hours. Like, doing it in a couple hours, yeah, but it's double threshold, double workouts.
You got to get into the state. You got to get up early that morning, get to the stadium, go through your whole pre-race routine, do the heat, come back from the stadium. It's just you don't want to deal with that stuff on the morning of the most important race of your life.
And Mokazila, on YouTube makes a good point. Ethiopians might even let him do it because points out Gretna Wally got fourth in the steeple and then bombed his 5,000 meter heat. So that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Robert, it's not happening. I mean, come on. I would bet you $1,000 at 3-1 odds he doesn't do this 5K prelim and steeple the same day. Come on.
Okay.
Like, and honestly, Ethiopian history, it's not conducive to doubling. Ethiopia essentially they've never made it easy for the athletes to double. So you think they're going to like make it easy for him to do? No way. Maybe if he has 12:45 in the steeple in the 5K and a good steeple time, they'd let him consider it. But he's not even thinking that way. I guarantee it.
What do you mean you don't guarantee it? Then why is he running his meets? I think he wants to see what he's capable of in this event.
Well, I think also the strength can help him in the steeplechase. I mean, that's why a lot of people do it.
If you're just joining us, this is a live reaction show. If you want this as a podcast, join the Supporters Club. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. Every week we have at least one extra podcast, sometimes 2 or 3, for Supporters Club members. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. We're recapping the Diamond League opener in Xiamen, China. Did not disappoint. Super impressive stuff.
Okay, let's move to the women's 200, start the sprint talk. The big story going in, this was Sha'Carri RIchardson's season opener, and I think we all expected her to win. The field here was not great. And instead, from lane 9, it was 19-year-old Tori Lewis of Australia who got the win, which was a surprise. But, if you told me the winning time was 22.96, maybe then I'd say Tori Lewis has a chance. Her personal best was 22.94. She's in shape right now because she just had the Aussie Championships. The rest of this field, it's April 20th, and the 22.96, even with a slight headwind, 0.4, it's just a very slow time in a Diamond League. So Sha'Carri did not have the best turn. Coming off the turn, she starts running down TT Terry. I was like, okay, Sha'Carri's probably going to win it. And I don't think she saw Tori Lewis out in lane 9. It was kind of reminding me of Sha'Carri when she won the 100 in Budapest from lane 9. I don't think Sha'Carri Jackson knew she was out there. And Richardson, she made a half-hearted lean today. She kind of stuck out her chest, but didn't time it right. I'm just looking at this race. It wasn't a great run by Sha'Carri, but it's April 20th, so I'm not really freaking out about it. But it's half a second to compare it to last year. She opened up her 200 season last year in Gaborone, Botswana. She ran 22:54 in that race at altitude. This was half a second slower. This was Sha'Carri's slowest 200 since July 2020. So not a good race for her, but she's got time to put things together.
Well, then am I going to get sued if the whole race is up on Twitter from NBC Olympics? Can I show that while we talk about it, or is that a no? We can't hear you.
Pete, look, do you need to rebroadcast the race? Make the point you want to make, Robert.
Well,
go look at it on Twitter, people.
Okay, people, I'm going to put the link to the tweet in the chat so you can watch it. For some reason, I don't want to get a copyright violation. But no, I don't think I actually linked to the right thing. But I did the search. No, my comment was, I didn't know what to do when I was putting up the poll in the preview. I was like, what time will she run? The slowest time I had, though, was 22.2, over 22.2, or was it over? Let me find it to be sure. But because her official PB is 21.9. She's run 21.6 in terms of wind aided. But I was looking at what she opens up with. John, you said 22.5 last year. And so we had this poll pre-race. I said, what will Sha'Carri run? Sub 21.9, which is her PB, 21.9 to 22.05, 22.05 to 22.2. My last option was 22.2, which may have been wrong. But only 9% of the people said she'd run over 22.2. And in reality, she ran 3/4 of a second slower than that. Now, so did everybody else in the field. But if you're wondering, if you're not a diehard sprint fan, the Olympic standard, only less than 20 people have this. It's like 22.5, which I think would have been decent. But to me, I'm ignoring the sprint times. It's a relative thing to me. Where are you finishing against other people? What have they been running in other meets? The conditions can be weird. Wind can be wind and all this stuff. So, but to lose to a 21.9 girl from Australia is not good. Now, 22.9, excuse me. And when I was looking on Twitter for the race highlights to see if I could embed them in the show, another thing popped up, and I haven't listened to the interview, but it says Sha'Carri's happy with her season opener. So if you win the race, I think you would have been relatively happy with it. Can she still win the world title? I certainly don't think she's going to win the world title in the 200. She said, I want to be a 2-event sprinter. I think that ship is gone unless, the top Jamaican is injured this year. But, and also this is not impressive to me in the sense of, if you want to see if Sha'Carri is going to break a world record this year, that ship sailed to me in the 100 even. I know it's April, John, but you'd want to see some gigantic thing. And that's why today, to me, is big for the Noah Lyles fan club, whether he's going to win the 100 and the 200, because we're going to see how a lot of his biggest rivals, we're going to get to the men's 100, and Kerley, Coleman ran today in the 100, Tobogo's running the 200. You can only improve so much in 3 months, John.
Well, clearly you didn't learn your lesson from last year. He was beaten by a high schooler in April, and you totally wrote off Noah Lyles and then he goes out and wins the 100-meter world title. I'm not going to ignore sprint times in April, but Sha'Carri RIchardson, okay, she got beat. She didn't run a good race today, but it's April 20th. I'm not ultimately too worried about the rest of her season just based on this one race, but she's got some work to do.
All right, and one thing about Sha'Carri. Now, John, don't go there because John's blocked by Sha'Carri because he once commented on her fishnet stockings that she wore to meet. I will comment on her appearance. It was fascinating. And all the international broadcasters, the U.S. broadcasters, comment on this. Sha'Carri finishes the race. She's very much into fashion. And she's kind of has the afro hair. And she was like fixing her hair, smiling. I think she thought she won. But the TV guys did a terrible job because we didn't get to see her reaction when they actually pointed out that she lost. She was like fixing her hair, trying to see what the time was. And they said photo. And then they cut to the Australian who started smiling. And then Sha'Carri you can see Sha'Carri in the background. She turned her head. And I was like, darn it, man. If we had the head-on shot of Sha'Carri, she's fixing her hair, looking all beautiful. Well, and then the loss pops up. It would have been fascinating. But Robert, I didn't want to offend anyone. I didn't want to get Let's One blocked. I was going to put Sha'Carri, the hair looks amazing. The time, not so much.
Well, Robert, I was kind of wondering, was she kind of playing to the cameras at a certain point? Because at first, you fix your hair, you make sure you look good for the celebration thing. And she was taking so long to do it, and she was kind of smiling. I was like, maybe she's just sort of playing with everyone. It's like she knows her hair already looks good, and she's just taking forever to do it, kind of winking to everyone. So I kind of got a kick out of that, actually.
Yeah, I think she thought she won the race and then was sort of shocked. I really don't think she saw that Australian. After the race, she said, I felt really good about it being the season opener. Kind of late for me in the season to open up, so I was a little nervous. But once I got on the track, it felt like home. I felt really good about this first performance. I know what I need to work on, me and my coach. I'm pretty sure by the time I get back to the warm-up area, he's already feeling it. So, for the record, she only opened up 2 weeks earlier. April 8th last year, she ran her first 100 in Florida last year. I mean, she came out of the gates blazing last year in the 100. I mean, they were wind aided, but she ran 10.75 and 10.57. Holy crap, that was the same day. I forgot about that. Then her first Diamond League was later in the year, which was a wind legal 10.76. So not the best performance, but she beat Tamara Clark, who's run 22.2 this year. So I don't really expect Sha'Carri to start dominating the 200 like what she's done in the 100. So she'll probably be fine. The first time she runs the 100, that's when I'm going to be a lot more interested.
Then looking at the other big sprint matchup of the day, that was the men's 100. Christian Coleman versus Fred Kerley. We also had Akeem Blake from Jamaica in there as well. It was an odd race because usually you think if Christian Coleman's going to win, it's because he gets a big lead and he holds everyone off. And that's not what happened. He actually didn't have an amazing start, had to do a little work, but he had a very good middle of his race, and that's what won him the race today. Held off Fred Kerley. 10.13. Again, not a super fast time, even with a slight headwind. Kerley was second, 10.17. Akeem Blake, 10.20. But I thought it was a good sign for Coleman. Usually you say if he doesn't get his start, it's going to be very hard for him to win. He didn't really get his start today, and he still won. So, to me, good sign for Christian Coleman, even if the time wasn't too fast.
I agree. At the start, I thought Kerley's got this. I mean, he was ahead of. It looked like to me like he was ahead of Coleman. I'm like, he's going to destroy him, and he didn't. But to me, the best, a good start. To me, the big winner in this race was Noah Lyles. I mean, Noah's run a few outdoor races this year, right? John still hasn't. I guess we can't with sprint. I do think John's right. You cannot get overly concerned about sprint time. So much of it, is conditions, whether it's this time of the year or end of the season. And then, also it's April. But if I'm Noah Lyles and I see this, I'm like, okay, these guys don't look like, they're at another level or anything like that. But, yeah, Noah Lyles ran 10.01. Now, he had a plus 1.7 win. So 10.01 sounds a lot more impressive than a 10.13, right? But I bet if you factor in the wins, let's do that on the thing. I assume it's pretty similar. What was the win here, John?
Minus 0.6.
What was the time?
10.13. All right, Robert's going to probably take forever to do this math. But, Weldon, any thoughts on this race between Kerley and Coleman? I mean, we thought Coleman was the favorite going in, so I'm not really surprised he won. I think just the difference is he didn't win the way we thought he would win.
Yeah, we would almost need to rewatch it to see really. Sometimes the starts can be somewhat, I don't know, the angle. You think, he didn't get that of a start, and he was actually ahead. But it did sure look like he came back on Kerley to me. The times were just so much slower across the board to me, but also when everyone runs slow, there's that just means the conditions were slow today. The wind doesn't look that crazy in itself. The temperature was fine. I'm sort of shocked that in today's era that the times weren't faster than they were. But I guess the most important thing for Coleman is he gets the win. But I don't know. I think you're all these guys. It's you just sort of file it away and don't think much of it. We're not. What Lyles ran 10.01 in his opener.
Yeah. Now, Robert, I've got a question for you,
guys.
I've got some new information for you. Yeah. I don't know if you'd seen this result. Okay.
No, I've got some breaking news for you. I've done the win conversion. It's pretty interesting. The sprint times are so people just. The IAAF technology exists. They should pay for Jonas Mariucca's win conversion and then show you the time and then instantly show you the win conversion for the 100. You can debate the accuracy of the 200, but come on, the 100 is pretty accurate. These times convert. 10.13 with a negative 0.6 is a 10.10. Noah Lyles, 10.01 with a positive 1.7 is a 10.10. So the three of these guys ran the same goddamn time on different sides of the continent. After a while, I'm so much faster. No, they're doing the same thing at the same time of the year, and it's interesting. It sounds like there's a result. I'm assuming this is the Leslie Tobago result from
This is the Tobago
Africa.
Result from Nairobi. So you were 5,000 plus feet of altitude, so you got a bump there. He doesn't win the race. He got beat. Him and Courtney Lindsay, the NCAA 100 champion from last year, from Texas Tech, wins it 19.71. Tobago, same time, 19.71. I haven't seen the race. The other thing interesting about this, big headwind, minus 1.5. So I would say that pretty much cancels out the altitude, but that's a good time for both of these guys. And I got to ask you, Robert, knowing all these facts, 19.71, Tobago's beaten by Lindsay into a headwind. Where are you at on the Noah Lyles scale? How panicked are you about him winning an Olympic gold medal this summer?
I think he's still got a very good shot. I'm thinking though that he could lose. I mean, I was hoping to see much more from Kerley. I don't think Coleman's winning the gold medal in the 100. I know you said he did well in the season. To me, he's past his prime. Maybe you could say Kerley's past his prime. But nothing in this 100 scared me. We know Noah's good at getting it right on the peak. He's proven it last year. So, but when you were saying the 200 time, in my head, I was like, what do I want to see? When you told me that Tobago lost, it's like, that's devastating to me. That's devastating to me. But then I was like, what time do I want to see? And I thought, if they run 19.7, I'm impressed by that. And you said 19.71. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Could Lyles win both? Yes. Could he win neither? Yes. And I think it's probably – I don't think that he has – well, that's not true. If you had betting odds right now, do you think he would be the even money favorite in either one of these races? I don't think he would be in the 100. I think in the 200
he might even money in the 200. I think it'd be like minus odds in the 200. And Robert, you did not give me a number. 1 to 10. How panicked are you about Noah Lyles? 10 being, oh my God, my prediction's going to be, it's done, it's over. He's going to win the gold medal. He's a lock. 1 being not worried at all. Where are you?
7-ish, 6.
Okay. All in the Game's got a question here. Does Lindsay make the 200-meter team ahead of Lyles, Knighton, and Kenny B? I mean, he's not making the team ahead of Lyles. 19.71. Courtney Lindsay has taken a step up this year. He ran 19.88 last week, I think, in Florida. He's running well, but I'm not picking him to make the team ahead of Lyles. I don't think I'm going to pick him ahead of Knighton. And then Kenny, I could see him getting the 3rd spot with Kenny Bednarek. He's clearly a threat to make the Olympic team, but I'm not putting him ahead of Lyles or Knighton right now. It was minus 1.5, but they do get a little bit of elevation. The lanes, Lindsay was in 7. Let's see, Tobago is in 6. Oh, you're doing your altitude conversion here as well or whatever, right? Anyway, the men's 200 US was already a really strong event, but if Courtney Lindsay is going to keep running like this the whole summer, that's going to be a battle at the US trials, and I can't wait for it.
Say the lanes again, please.
Oh my God, this is not fun podcast. We don't need to do these live conversions on the show, Robert. We talk about the Xiamen Diamond League, but it was lane 7 for Lindsay and 6 for Tobago. Okay.
Wait, I mean, first of all, is Lindsay going to make the team ahead of Lyles? No. Or if he is, he's going to win the gold medals. I mean, like, could he make the team? Yes. But, I mean, he's the one guy, essentially, like, in the U.S., I feel like, who just was so under the radar last year. I guess he's an NCAA champion, but you don't make worlds. You sort of fall off the equation, but, like...
He did make worlds. He made it in the 200.
Oh, 200, that's right. But... I don't know. Coming into this year, you're like looking at him, you're like, yeah, this guy could be any other country. You're like, holy shit, can this guy medal at the Olympics? I think you're thinking. Whereas him, you're like, wait, that guy might make the team. So, but in the U.S., you make the team, you can contend for the win. You're running these times like, oh my God, like look out. So,
yeah, it's going to be fun for sure.
I do have the win conversion. It's equivalent to a 19.78, which I don't think that's going to scare Noah Lyles.
He's the only one. Wind and altitude, right?
Yeah, if you were
so they're giving him a lot of credit, I guess, for the altitude because that's 0.07 slower, even though he ran it into a 0.15. There's a 1.5 headwind.
Now, how many times does Noah Lyles break 1978? It's basically every other race that he ran last year. He ran 20-0, 19.6, 19.8, 19.4, 20-0, 19.76, 19.5, 19.8. It's kind of interesting to think about. This just shows you how much the win matters. Noah Lyles' winning time at Worlds last year. Excuse me, he won Worlds in 19.52 with a negative 0.2, but he won Zurich, the final Diamond League, in only 19.8, but he was running into small headwind. So 1978 is really good for everybody in the world not named Noah Lyles in the 200. For him, it's kind of like he can do that, like going through the motions.
All right, guys. Anything else to add on this meet? I mean, there was a good women's 100 hurdles with Jasmine Camacho Quinn winning that. Devin Charlton kind of reminded me of Grant Holloway in that race. We know they have an amazing start. They're both the world record holders, world indoor champions indoors. But Charlton was outrun. She had the lead for a long time, but Camacho Quinn got her coming off the final hurdle. Men's 110 hurdles, Daniel Roberts took it. Hansel Parchment just wasn't competitive. Really didn't. I mean, he's not a great starter to begin with, but he was only 6th in this race. Women's 400, Marilady Paulino won it comfortably in the end. Any thoughts on any of these races?
Yes. The women's hurdles to me was fascinating because I really wanted to see what the new world record holder could do. Would she dominate? And I was like watching it, and 60 meters, she was clearly ahead, as is Grant Holloway always. And then it reminded me of something. I'm like, how does Grant Holloway get caught? And I'm like, well, she's doing it. You see, like the end of the race is a lot different. And the men have to run another 10 meters. So the outdoor race is almost twice as long as the indoor race. And it just showed me it just reminded me of why Grant Holloway is a little bit vulnerable. Like if they had 100-meter men's hurdles, he probably would never lose that. But in the last 10 meters, he's more vulnerable. The women's 400, what a good way to start the Diamond League season. It was the first event on the track. You've got all 3 of the medals from last year, plus Brenton Wilson. And Paulino, says, hey, I'm still the one to beat. Disappointing to me for Brenton Wilson. I mean, doesn't even break 51 seconds. So the key thing for her, and again, everyone, it's April 20th. Can she get her peak right? Because she's an amazing athlete when she's peak. So I think it's fine as long as she keeps moving in the right direction. They really had the peak wrong last year in terms of if you're trying to do the Worlds and Olympics. But, it's like when I was talking to John Kellogg, later today, Josh Kerr is going to make his 800-meter debut. And John's like, it does. I said, what do you expect Josh Kerr to run? He's like, if you're the world champion in the 800, you should be able to run a 146 in your sleep. But I said, well, who wins, him or one of his Brooks Beast teammates who's really a more 800-meter runner? John's like, it doesn't matter. Totally irrelevant to me. So, we do got to remember where we are in the season. But this was a fun way to start the season. It's like there's so many meets. It's like, what do you decide that's important? And we decided a long time ago, okay, we'll do the marathon majors, although that's becoming more of a marketing gig now. It's kind of pissing me off. So we've added Valencia to the field. And we do the Diamond League. Now, the fact that they're going behind a $150 paywall is kind of going to piss me off next year. But this was a fun meet to watch, to get up. I'm glad I did. And, I guess I don't know. Like, is there anything that's drastically changed today now than from 3 hours ago when this meet was starting? It's one way to think about it. I mean, Mondo is still amazing. We know Tsegay is one of the greatest ever, but will her kick be there? Will she be able to beat Kipyegon? I don't know. Girma's incredible, but can he kick? They were catching up on him in the last 50 today. Addy Wiley and these people, hey, they're running good, but there's a big gap between the top Western runner and the top African runner. I'm trying to think of any massive shocks for me.
I think just Tsegay running a personal best and giving the world record a scare in the 1500. She's been at a very high level for a while, but for her to keep improving, it just shows Faith Kipyegon, she can't really afford to let anything slip if she's going to still be on top in the 1500, I think.
If Tsegay,
exactly, John. We thought that when Kipyegon runs the world record last year, I thought she's untouchable. We almost act like she's untouchable at 1500 on this podcast, which is crazy. Tsegay after the race said, yeah, of course I think I can break the world record now. So the women's 1500 got even more interesting. Is she going to try the triple? I mean, there's just lots of sort of questions for the season, which is good, right? Even Britton Wilson. Robert's like, oh, that's a bad run. She didn't time her peak wrong last year. She got injured. I mean, you could argue that's related to the peak, but she was doing the whole college season, got injured. But if the talent in her is so amazing, she can easily be a world champion if she gets it right. But, does she have time to get ready from 51 to 49? I don't know enough about sprinting to really say that one. The hurdles, Devin Charlton, I thought that was a disappointing run, but okay, can she get those last 4 hurdles right? Whatever, So it's there's tons of storylines.
Britton Wilson, I actually think this is not a good result for her because she's been running 400s the last 2 weeks. She ran 51.07 in her season opener in Miramar, and that was into quite a lot of wind. And then she runs 50.74 last week at Tom Jones in Gainesville. So I'm thinking, okay, 51.07, 50.74. Now she's going to a Diamond League. She's going to have people to race. She should be able to drop that time a little bit more. And okay, she had a lot of travel, but she ran slower today, 51.26, than she did in either of those first 2 races, and she had people to race against. So that, to me, is not a good sign when you're slower than your first 2 races of the year.
I want to talk a little bit about this Tsegay race, Kipyegon. Like, do you think if they raced today, who would have won? But for the Olympics, it's going to be interesting. I was kind of thinking, like, okay, this race shows to me, like, it's like, well, I guess you could say, like, how does Tsegay ever lose the 5,000? But she lost to Kipyegon last year. She didn't even medal in the 5,000. She was like 13th. She wins the 10 and then somehow bombed the 5,000. But it's a different schedule for the Olympics. So the 5,000 is done before the 1,500 even starts. So is Kipyegon going to go for the double? And if they're both fresh for that race, who's got the edge? You know, I know Kipyegon won it last year, but that's not Tsegay at her best. I forgot I think she said she was bothered by an injury. So I'm kind of, God, but Kipyegon, they're both so good. I was kind of thinking, okay, Tsegay's got a little bit more endurance. She's probably the favorite in the 5,000. But God, that would be hard to bet on her, even as good as she is now. So I don't know if this really changes much, but it's interesting. Then you've got the first round of the 15, the semis of the 15, and then the 10,000 final, and then the 1,500 final. No races on the same day. So the triple is very much doable for any and all of all 3 women. And I think it would be absolutely amazing if Tsegay, Kipyegon, Hassan run all 3 and sweep all 3 medals. 9 medals.
And
it would be wild.
That won't happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be basically like swimming. You know, we complain, swimming, it's just the same athletes winning the same races. They have so many opportunities, and then the women's distances would basically just be like swimming because you've got these 3 freak talents. So, all right, I think that's going to do it for our show from Xiamen. Thanks everyone for tuning in on Saturday morning. I had coffee instead of beer this time for our live show. Bunch more track to come today. I mean, there's the Mount Sac relays. I think Mo and Sydney McLaughlin-Lavroni are entered as part of relay teams out there. The Nairobi meet has been going on as we did this whole show, so I'm sure we'll watch that and have some takes on it on our Tuesday podcast. And then you've got Josh Kerr opening up in the Oregon relays in the 800 tonight out in Eugene. There was a world record last night. We didn't even mention it. The Brooks Beast taking down the DMR world record, the team of Brandon Kidder, Brandon Miller, Isaiah Harris, and Henry Wynn. So congrats to them. And then London Marathon, Sunday morning. So plenty of stuff to discuss when we return for the regular pod on Tuesday. But
congrats
until then
to the Brooks Beast.
I know, we need to apologize. I doubted them. Hey, what were the splits for Harris and Miller? Because I got to see if they're going to beat Kerr.
Harris was 140. I think he was 145.7, and Miller was like 46.6. I think.
So they're going to be tired out for Kerr. They were running the world record to tire them out, so just Kerr could beat them today. Very interesting. I got to get a bet.
I hope they have a contract bonus for that world record, because those can be very fruitful if you have a world record bonus. You know, I don't think Brandon Kidder or Isaiah Harris is ever going to break an individual world record, but getting one as part of a relay team could be nice for I guess I don't think any of them could break an individual record. I should be fair to all of them. I don't think any of them are going to get it, but getting one as part of a relay, that's a nice little bump, I think.
I need to go. I got to get up at 4 a.m., John. It's time for me to go to bed already.
I mean, people are talking about here in the chat, yes, Courtney Lindsay did beat Tobogo. Making a U.S. sprint team, and even the 100 or the 200, is so effing ridiculously hard. I mean, there's a very good chance Lindsay Tebogo. Lyles, Bednarik. One of these guys could easily be left off the team, right?
Yeah, look, the sprinters say they run the Olympics twice. It's the U.S. trials and then it's the Olympics. And if you're making a U.S. team, I mean, this isn't always the case, but it is right now. If you're making a team in the U.S. in the 100 or the 200, you're a legitimate Olympic medal contender. Like, it is very hard to make that team. They've swept the podium. In the 2022 Worlds, the U.S. swept the podium in the 100 and the 200 on the men's side. It's just a really, really hard team to make. That's why the trials are great.
And wasn't it 6 different athletes?
Yeah. It was Kerley, Marvin Bracey, Trayvon Bromell on the 100, and then it was Lyles, Bednarik, and Knighton in the 200. So and that doesn't include Courtney Lindsay. It's just a bevy of riches in the sprints. So going to be great at the Olympic trials. We'll see everyone back for the regular podcast on Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.